Because if you have bad data, incomplete data, or tribal knowledge, there's no way having an AI would make that smarter or better. I mean, you have to have good foundational data, great data governance, and a way to disseminate that among the organization.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Ocel, VP of Innovation at This.Labs, here for another episode of the Leadership Exchange. Today, I'm joined by Eric Poon. Eric is the head of IT at Shoppa's Toyota Material Handling. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation. We have a really cool one coming up here, but I think maybe to introduce yourself, could you maybe give us a little bit of, a taste of your journey as far as it is with leadership, kind of corporate leadership, kind of how have you arrived at this point in your career?
It has all been due to a great team of individuals and always been giving a new problem to solve. I'm currently head of IT for Shoppa's Material Handling, which is a distributor for Toyota Material Handling North America. We basically help provide anything within the four walls of a warehouse. And we have ambitious goals where we want to double the size of our business in 5 years. I went, that's exciting. Prior to that, I was the CTO portfolio manager for PepsiCo. And before that, I was at Peloton.
Very nice. Wow, that's a fun tour right there. Did you always see yourself as getting, is this type of leadership always been in your career goals? I feel like it's been a fun thing to ask people in these podcasts. So many people, it's like half and half. Some people, it's like, yeah, this was always my goal. But a lot of people are just sort of like, no, a couple things broke the right way over the years. And all of a sudden, here I am.
It would be more the latter. I had always, I'm that person who always wanted to get that perfect score in Tetris. I just like seeing a problem and solving for it. I like being in the weeds, and I'd like to get to know the business, and then I went, what are the impacts that IT has that ripples across the entire organization?
Very cool. All right. Well, I know one of the topics that we're going to engage with tonight is one that was somewhat new to me, and I'm really kind of fascinated to dig into it. And it's this idea of sort of industry 5.0. And I think, I sort of was joking with you before we turned on the recording that is, I haven't been upgrading my OS. I didn't know I was even on industry 4.0. So for people that maybe aren't familiar with the term and what it might mean, can you kind of give people a sense, I guess maybe first of all, sort of industry 4.0, if that's what we consider the current age or era to be, and then maybe a little bit about what this next step or promise of 5.0 brings?
Definitely. You could say industry 1.0 was the Industrial Revolution. And as we constantly,
I don't remember that. My son might think, but no, I wasn't around then. Yeah.
But we jumped to industry 4.0. This is where we went, wow, we've gotten, the internet. We've gotten 4G and 5G everywhere. We are now having in the age where we can deal with loads more information, and we don't have to rely on the traditional data centers, where we send everything back. We went, we can actually do compute on the edge, Internet of Things devices, where we install sensors pretty much throughout the entire manufacturing line of no matter what product you're manufacturing, whether it be food, beverages, automobiles, planes. And we went, why don't we take that data and use it to help be more productive, be faster than a human? I went, let's say you're producing something that's, a million items a minute. We went, there's no way a human could keep up with that, but a robot could. So that's when we went, now we're getting the automation installed. We've gotten autonomous mobile robots, AGVs, autonomous guided robots, and we went, wow, we're seeing the dividends of implementing this throughout across the entire manufacturing industry worldwide.
So then, introduce us to. I mean, that sounds great, right? For people that are aware of these technologies, they've been very effective. I've heard people yell about what the potential is of this. The idea that you have. Robots don't ask for as many benefits and types of things as humans do. They don't ask for breaks. They can run 24/7, and what that might do to manufacturing in particular, to be able to run lines or offsetting lines, in different ways. So then what was that sort of need or that kernel of agitation that was then building up to kind of create that drive towards 5.0? What was the the piece that people sort of realized was not yet perfected in 4.0?
Well, this is the exciting part. We all realize we need to do continuous improvement. We're constantly trying to refine and do better than the day before, in both our personal and professional lives. So we went Industry 4.0. It was great. What's over the horizon? Like, how are we looking like to what's next? We still have not defined Industry 5.0. There have been talks of different technologies or different methodologies, but nothing has been solidified across actually any industry that I know of worldwide. So I went, that's what's exciting. We went, how can we move that needle to that next big step?
That's actually really interesting. So let me see if I'm understanding this correctly. So 4.0 brings automation, standardization, repeatability. And that's great as long as you continue to want to build the same things in perpetuity forever. That's a wonderful system. But if you have kind of this desire to have a self-optimizing system and a constantly improving system, purely automation on its own does not satisfy that. Is that kind of that fundamental unmet need or desire that's sort of driving the conversation, even if it's not formally defined yet?
100%. There's been plenty of publicized articles where certain companies try to go, let's remove all the humans from a warehouse and have just robots run everything. Those projects usually shut down within a week.
Wow. Okay.
Because they realize these robots are very efficient, but they don't know the nuances and differences between products that are the same, but they don't look the same to the robotic guy. So it catches them off guard. So it's not able to correct as quickly as a human can. So we are now seeing the return of the human. We went human-robot cooperation. So at multiple warehouses where we see the robots can rapidly go down an aisle, pick out a product, bring it to human, and human can then carefully then assemble a package and send it to the consumer.
That is a really interesting idea. I mean, in some sense, manufacturing and industry has been ahead of this game because, I know we've discussed a little bit that this, what we're talking about, this form of automation is not AI, but I think that the broader conversation around AI has led to a lot of the same, both promises of Industry 4.0 sort of spoken about in broad terms, and then people pushing back with some of the same kind of conceptions of 5.0. It's kind of interesting that industry went to and explored full automation and then it discovered that actually humans are still necessary. I don't know. Maybe that gives me a little bit of hope in some of the discourse that's going around that there is, that humans belong in this future of all commerce, of all industry, alongside forms of automation, as sort of like an enhanced form of ourselves with these tools.
Oh, 100%. There's no way to recreate that human creativity. Let's take over in Ireland, Waterford crystal. Those are hand-blown crystals, but you're dealing with actually somewhat dangerous conditions for human. You've got scalding hot glass that you have to be careful to manipulate. So I think it would be pretty unique to see a robot help remove some of the dangers, but still allow a human creative element when hand blowing and crafting that glass. I think there could be efficiencies done there and lower waste. So they would be able to see a proven ROI. I would say pretty immediately.
Huh. What does it change for the people who are working in these roles? I mean, again, I'm sure the role of the workers in manufacturing has changed during the automation boom. What does it look like, I guess, as another transition? Have you had any thoughts on what this looks like? Like, obviously, you need sort of technicians to sort of operate and maintain these things. That's what we've learned through the automation era. But if you're going to bring workers back in, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not assuming that necessarily those are the same technicians who are maintaining and implementing the system. So what does a worker in Industry 5.0 sort of look like?
It actually would be the same workers.
Oh, okay.
So now that you've removed some of the, say, dangerous or repeatable tasks, having a robot do it, and then you're having them focus on the more creative, innovative tasks, you're creating upskilling and you're improving the internal NPS score of your employees. You have a happier employee. So it leads to longer retention. So long-term business impact, it actually just pays for itself in the long run.
So what is, I guess, what are you doing to prepare for this? You already said that like kind of industry 5.0 is a concept, for a long time. We've heard about Web 3. I mean, I know people that were kind of talking about Web 1, Web 2, and they got into this kind of conversation. And sometimes it's right. It feels like something is off on the distance and you don't know it's there until you've already been told you've passed it, right? So as you kind of are sort of embracing this idea and thinking about this idea, what are you doing with your teams and your company to either prepare for or to, I guess, take the first forays into this ecosystem?
Robust data governance.
Okay.
So it's generally the answer I usually give when people go, "What's your AI strategy?" I like to turn that around a little bit. I go, "What is our data strategy?" Because if you have bad data, incomplete data, or tribal knowledge, there's no way having an AI would make that smarter or better. I mean, you have to have good foundational data, great data governance, and a way to disseminate that among the organization.
Is there a way to solve? I mean, yes, bad data is certainly a bad thing, but like, what if you only have recent data? I feel like that's an insecurity that a lot of people have, is that maybe they've had collected data, but they don't archive it well. And so all of a sudden they're looking at it and they're like, I only have 6 months of data, or I have a couple years of data, or whatever it is, right? I just don't have what I could otherwise have. Is there ways to deal with that? Are you in just as bad a situation as if your data was bad?
I think it actually depends on the type of data it's collecting.
Gotcha.
So in certain industries, AI has done their predictive models and algorithms. They've been matched against mathematicians and human algorithms, and they went with actually a very little historical data. On average, it's been able to predict future trends fairly accurately. I wouldn't say 100%, but I went like it's actually pretty on par. So I think that's what's exciting as we accelerate high performance compute and quantum computing. I think it's just going to get better, and you'll need less historical data.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious too about like the quality of data, meaning like the type. There's been sort of this idea for a while. People talking about data lakes and things like this. Just get anything you can and just throw it into one giant vat. And what I've found, from the sort of industry that I'm coming from, right, the software space, is that when we've been using AI or AI tooling, it's really schematic, like structured data. That's the key. So, when we have two languages that are very similar to another, but one is a typed language and the other one is untyped, the AI does incredibly well with the typed languages because it just gives it so much ability to introspect beyond the bounds of even what's visible just by the structure of what's there. I mean, I've been blown away. I do a little side project, and I was updating some data with some college teams. It's almost March Madness here is the time that we're recording this. So I've got my eyes in some college basketball data, and I was updating the side project of mine, and some names of teams changed. And as I'm updating it, the AI tool that I have is just detecting what I'm doing and knows the new names. And I just think like, first of all, how did you even know that's what I was doing? But second of all, that is the power of structured data is really what I'm finding. It's like the quality of the data is one thing, but it's like if you don't have data that has a form and a function to it that relates to other pieces of data in ways that can also be detected, I find that a lot of these intelligence systems just really start to struggle to actually give you meaningful insights. Whereas the opposite is also true. Like if that scheme is there, it's incredible what it'll glean, even if you didn't tell it what you wanted.
I totally agree, which is why we're trying to move beyond the data lakes to a data lake house. That's the next evolution.
Oh, okay. I like that idea. All right.
And we are creating fabrics now. So like Databricks, where you pull in from disparate sources, you organize it into a common format, and then you're able to act on that unified data as it all talks to each other.
So what is the next step after that? Okay, I have data. I have a need to look for tooling. So maybe I have, automation already, some form of robots and things like that. Like, what is the technology sets? I mean, it sounds like AI is one of them, but what does the technology sets look like that enable humans to kind of cooperate with these automated systems? Is AI the thing that is sort of being the bridge or the mediator between, pure robots, automation, and the human operators? Is that the idea, or what other technologies are kind of at play here?
I think it's an enabler. It's not an end all to it.
Gotcha.
It can enable mass personalization. So now instead of having, say, a generic shoe size or shirt size, it knows what fits you regardless. So you don't need to do translation. And with design to order or design to fit systems, we've already seen it play out right now. I mean, you can go onto a social media, go, I like that shirt. It'll be produced overseas and then at your doorstep within a week or less. And the cost would be at a similar cost to buying that generic same sized a shirt from a department store.
Wow. Yeah, that is exciting. We've come a long way from, I guess, the bots that would, that would scour the Twitter and see you say, "Oh, that's a cool picture," and then it would say, "Oh, I have it on a T-shirt for you."
Correct. So I think we'll see mass personalizations throughout all industries, not just manufacturing. I mean, we'll see that accelerate probably sales teams where they don't have to do blanket cold calls because they can already know their customer ahead of time and their needs.
Do you see, or is this disconnected, these ideas of sort of Industry 5.0, are they disconnected from the idea of sort of raising the value and the importance of individual workers? I didn't know if that was a part of 5.0 as well. Some of the things that I've seen seemed to imply that this idea of raising up, again, like instead of treating factory workers or manufacturing workers as being sort of like robots to then be replaced by robots. Now, if they have this integral role where they are integrated with automation and providing a very valuable resource, which is their creativity and that power, it seems like that kind of raises the value and importance of that work even higher. Is there an element of this which is about kind of raising the workers as well? Or do you see this as being like sort of an orthogonal or a separate track of conversation around the same time?
I think it doesn't just raise the worker. I think it raises the entire workforce overall.
Okay.
We keep accelerating. So when you see like just within the last 100 years, as we went from horse and buggy to automobile to self-driving vehicles to now rocket ships. The time frame keeps shrinking faster and faster. It doesn't take that long compared to before. So I think that's what it helps accelerate. It'll let us get to that next big thing in half of the amount of time that just took us for the next big revolution.
That's really interesting. And it's what's weird is I don't think our human brains are well equipped to be able to process that. I was watching a video recently with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was sort of saying something which I'd said to my son and it blew his mind, which was this idea that it's possible that the last people who will ever die have already been born. And it was this idea that like over a period of time, say 50 years, we'd extended the life expectancy like 20 years. But over the last 10 years, we've raised it by 5. And this idea that at some point in a year, we'll have raised life expectancy by more than a year, and then we are functionally immortal. And it's like, it's amazing what progress can do just incrementally, because it's kind of like almost like a percentage-based thing. It just sort of compounds in ways that it's hard to see when you're still in kind of the accelerating portion of the curve, but it really kind of it really becomes powerful at the fringes.
100%.
Great. Well, we have more of our topic to come, but first I would just like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, This.Labs. This episode is brought to you by This.Labs, the experts in modern web development and consulting. If you're looking to scale up your development teams efficiently, or you need assistance in turning your innovative ideas into reality with robust proofs of concept, This.Labs has you covered. This.Labs doesn't just build software, they build partnerships. They collaborate closely with your team to understand unique challenges and craft tailored solutions that drive real results. Join the many companies that have accelerated their growth and innovation with the help of This.Labs. Visit this.co to discover how they can help you take your projects to the next level. Thanks to This.Labs and my team for sponsoring this episode and for supporting the developer community. And now, back to our episode. So, Eric, the other topic that I wanted to talk about, which again, sounds like it's very similar to the topic that we were just on, and I guess it kind of weaves throughout it, but it's this idea of the social and ethical responsibilities of computing, which is a mouthful. It also sounds like a college course, which I guess it is.
It is.
But maybe set the stage for this topic. Like, what are some of the things that we're discussing or comparing? When we're considering these ethical responsibilities.
Sure. The initial discussions around AI, and not just Gen AI, I'll mention like when we've had machine learning and robotic process automation, is we went, is this ethical or not? Like, is the machine acting in ethical behavior? And then MIT has kind of changed that narrative around a little bit. They went, what is ethical computing in general? Not just ethical AI. They went, could we design a system that we know exactly what it could do and it would do no harm? In general, we can't. So we went, how do we pair up philosophy along with data scientists and technology? And we went, how do we balance that, like all of the areas that we struggle with as humans and apply them to machines? That'd be like, like our safety, security, how we can be manipulated, humans and computers. How do we have accountability on it? What about biases, discrimination? And we went, it's a complex topic, especially when we went, how do you determine what is ethical? They went, is it procedural? Like you went, the processes that the machine followed came to a result that we did not like, even though it was following the processes that we gave it. Or is it the expected outcome? We expected this, but it didn't do that. So I went, that's where it gets into more a philosophical issue than a technological one. So I've actually been really excited seeing how a lot of companies have started to hire college professors, college and university professors in the philosophy and ethics departments, and they're bringing them on into the IT departments because they went, just because something is legal doesn't mean it's ethical. Because as we've been trying to chase like the EU AI laws, we went, well, we should think bigger than that.
I mean, it's certainly overdue, I think. It's certainly welcome certainly in the age of AI. These questions abound, but certainly with any sort of technologically enabled company, or just any, most companies in general, I think, ethics tend to be an undervalued thing. I mean, again, we hold it, we tend to pride ourselves on it, but we tend not to enforce it on ourselves or to make it a priority through investment or through hiring sometimes, which I think it's good that to hear that that's being done a lot more.
Oh, definitely.
So with these sort of things that we're considering, is it all things to do with computing? It was a little bit hard to understand. Is it just around how we assess what the machines or the AIs or the computing resources are doing? Is it how we treat those resources as we deploy them and as they're operating? Is it how we develop them, or is it all of those things?
It would kind of be all those things because we went, all right, let's say a human makes a mistake. Is there liability involved? Sure. Let's say a machine makes a mistake, but machines are supposed to be error prone. I went, where does liability lie with that? Can you make liable the human that programmed that robot? Do you make the robot liable for its mistaken actions? I went, that's where you go down that slippery slope where you went, we like to, put them into straight binary buckets, but sometimes there's always that gray area. And then we went, how do we address that in a ethical manner?
There's nothing that'll make a person into a philosopher in this regard faster than getting into one of those autonomous driving taxis in San Francisco in Silicon Valley. I was there recently and we saw them. I didn't get into one, but I was thinking a lot of those same thoughts, which is to say, these are very sophisticated tools. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but if they were to cause God forbid, some type of human harm or a death, that really does create a complicated conversation about responsibility and what's owed there.
and obviously this is an age-old question, but it's a fun one to bring up. The trolley problem. You have a car, you tell it to always value human life. That sounds like a great thing to program a car to do. Let's say the car sees that it could swerve out of the way and kill the occupant inside. That's one human life to save 3 people that are down the road. Or does it continue to preserve the owner of the person in the car and pull on straight ahead? I went, how it would value. I went, well, one is, only one life compared to 3. I will do what I've been programmed to value human life.
Yeah, exactly right. As I've heard this in the exact same way, which is like, I might not want you to sacrifice my life in service of the 3 people. I may not want to accept this Kobayashi Maru as it's being presented to me. But yes, this is...
Yeah. How do you program that into the car? You went, well, value human life except in these circumstances.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I think, maybe this is not exactly the same thing, but I think one of the things that we've been tackling with, and sometimes it's said in jest, is just how polite you are to AI and machines. What I've heard from the research of like using some of these tools is that actually by personifying some of these tools that we're using, they become less effective in some cases because you've added a lot of superfluous, unnecessary, flowery language that humans use to lubricate our interactions with one another, but actually just add noise to the machines. But also that we treat them in ways that maybe we need to learn how to deal with them. Again, it's not about respecting them or disrespecting them, but it's just about understanding that they're not people. And I think that's what maybe complicates a lot of these ethical conversations is that they are intelligent and appear as sometimes as humans or as people, but like they are not. And I think it doesn't lower them at all, but it just means that we have to embrace that difference. I mean, is that kind of what you're getting at?
I agree. We definitely have to go with the human-centered approach.
What is that? Expand that out a little bit more. Like, what is, I guess, maybe concretely that human-centered approach?
It would be using computers or computing to augment human decision-making, but not replace it.
Right. Okay. So then, are there any other of these sort of social and ethical responsibilities? I mean, you've already given us some really good ones. Are there any other ones that you're aware of that are kind of are fun little twisters or people don't really expect or haven't thought about?
I could tell a story that was shared during an AI conference.
Sure, this would be great.
A company wanted to start safe with the utilization of AI. So they went, why don't we keep it a very narrow set? We will have it screen incoming applicants for job applications. And the only thing we'll have the AI scan for is match it against, like, is it in compliance with the HR handbook? So, HR's vetted it and legal's vetted it. So they went, that's the only thing it's allowed to look at. So we went, that's a very narrow set, should be good, should be pretty easy. At this company, the CEO's son applied for a job, automatically rejected. And then they went, wow, that's odd. Like, he's a straight A student. And why did the machine reject him? So they looked through the logs and they went, oh, rejected due to violation of the drug policy within the HR manual. And they go, what? That doesn't add up. And then they looked even deeper. They went, oh, his birthday was April 20th.
Oh.
And so the computer automatically read that as associated with, with violating the drug policy because of that birthday. So it was rejecting anyone with that birthday because of the numbers, because that was the narrow set it had in. So I would say that's where keeping the human loop would be kind of useful.
Yeah, absolutely. For a second there, I thought we were going full Orwellian, and you were going to say that it went and grabbed some ancient story of a high school, bust gone bad or something like that. But that's even sillier. But that raises an interesting question, which is, what do we make about the social and sort of ethical evaluation of hallucinations? And let's set aside for a second when a hallucination might cause significant harm. I just think in general, people aren't sure what to make of hallucinations. For some, it just makes them not trust the output altogether. For others, it just confirms why humans need to be kept in the loop to help validate this. But like, there are moments when it might be difficult to trace through. And, to some sense, again, we apply a certain level of trustworthiness to a tool. And if a tool has earned that trust, and an ill-placed hallucination, you start to have that idea like, wait a second, I was meant to check it, but like it's been correct forever. This was hard to notice. I acted on it. How should we handle and evaluate kind of the hallucination risks with these technologies?
Obviously, like you keep a human in loop monitoring, but then you always want to look at the processes behind it, and you go, why did it come to this? And sometimes we actually do know how it is, but it is also very public knowledge. There's sometimes we have no idea why the AI did. Like, I mean, you could be talking to an AI, Rob, and tell it, don't say this in a message. And the AI will reroute your message to do exactly what you told it not to do. And it'll expand on it. And it literally just kind of did it on its own. And it went, how did that happen? And we're still trying to actually figure that out.
Yeah, I'm wondering if agents solve some of this, because I think when it was purely generative AI and the sort of large language models, I think the hallucination, at least for me anyways, I mean, maybe it's just the models are getting better, but it just felt like the hallucinations were a larger risk. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's not a correct thing, but I feel like if I make a model build a thing, a more defined process, say like a piece of software that can find the answer I want, I almost have more confidence in it than if I just ask it to give me the answer. And I don't know if that's an intuition that's serving me well. Again, I might be bringing a lot of biases from before the era of these tools, but I think that like it's one of the things that makes it hard to fully embrace these AIs. And as I've used them in larger and more complicated ways, it gets hard to keep the entire problem space in front of you. And it's kind of made me wonder if I'm in a position now where I would put an AI in a place where it could make a significant decision without a human pushing the button. Like, I can be okay with AIs walking me all the way up to pushing the button,
right?
But I'm not sure if I want them to push it yet, even if I can review the output of what they're doing. And again, I just don't know when we would cross that threshold of confidence.
And that's why you would always keep the human along the whole way. By the time you get to pushing the button, it's probably too late. So because they just operate so much faster. So that's why I went, it's a human machine pairing together. Augmentation, not a replacement.
Yeah, there's just a lot of companies out there that have that kind of move fast and break things mentality that are just sort of like, hey, I'll let the AI do what it does, and if there's a mistake, we'll clean it up. And again, I'm taking human safety and life out of the equation here because that obviously contradicts that. But even if it was, like you said, somebody doesn't get into a college, somebody doesn't get a job, somebody gets turned down for a loan, these aren't like necessarily life like stealing things, but they are significant to people, and it's very difficult to come in and clean up after the fact. I don't think you're free of the harms of that to just say, oh, well, we're a low stakes sort of industry, or we're a low stakes software or whatever. I think that, I think you need that at any point, kind of no matter what the output is there.
There's that very publicized case of the nonprofit that had a call center that people could call 24/7. If it was a nonprofit dealt with people who had body image issues. I'm pretty sure. And they laid all the humans off, replaced it with Gen AI. And when people called in, Gen AI gave all the advice you are not supposed to tell people with body image issues.
Right.
That was pretty much that was the end of that nonprofit. Last I heard, because they went, oh my gosh, like that was a huge mistake.
Yeah, and like you said, that you can't hide behind the AI did it. That's the thing. I mean, maybe it sounded silly to say, oh, the robot taxi is going to take the blame for the car crash. I mean, maybe people very intuitively understand, no, maybe it's the company that deployed it. But in a lot of other cases, I think people are kind of counting on this idea that they can hide behind the deployed AI and say, oh, it was the hallucination. It must have been the model builders who did it. And I mean, maybe that is part of the ethical consideration, which is how much is on the business person who deployed it in an irresponsible way, and how much is it, or in a risky way, let's say, maybe not irresponsible, and how much is it on the model builders who sort of maybe represented it as being more capable than it might have been.
The courts are still ruling on these cases. There's that Air Canada case where someone was wondering about the bereavement policy, asked their AI chatbot, and the AI chatbot goes, "Of course we will reimburse you." So, flies, books the tickets, submits for reimbursement. Air Canada goes, "Well, no, that's not right. We are not going to reimburse you." Went all the way to the court. Court told the airline, "No, you need to repay it because that bot is a representative of your company." So
that woke a lot of people up real quick.
Right. What it told, they went, "You're now legally liable to follow what it advised this customer."
Yeah. I mean, again, these tools are so fun and they're so interesting and they're so useful. Again, we talked about at the beginning the promise of Industry 5.0 and what we'll be able to do with these sort of integrated toolings. But what I like about the second half of the conversation is that it does bring these considerations. That it is not perfect. We are still on the cutting edge of a wave of innovation, and we should not be blind to the significance of the moment of actually deploying these tools.
Oh, 100%.
Well, great. Well, listen, very quickly, we've arrived at the end of our conversation here. For people that have enjoyed this conversation and maybe they want to connect with you, maybe, pick your brain on any more of these topics, or just maybe they have ideas of their own, can you let people know where they can find you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place where myself and my peers, we like to engage in a robust online discussion on both pros and cons of AI and those gotcha moments where the things that just came out of left field that no one had thought of yet.
There you go. And hey, for me, if you have any more of these stories like Eric's been sharing, send them my way too, because I love these stories. They are difficult to think through sometimes, and they really open your eyes on both the promise and the potential risks of the moment that we're in, which is, again, for people like yourself who like to solve problems, a very exciting time right now.
Oh, 100%.
All right. Well, that is going to be it for us today. Thanks to Eric for being our guest, and thanks to each of you for listening. We hope to see you all next time. As we close out, we would just like to thank today's sponsor, This.Labs, one more time, who would like me to remind you that, hey, sometimes it's hard to bridge the gap between business objectives and tech implementation, and it can get messy. This. Is trusted by top names like Meta, Google, and T-Mobile, and they love helping business leaders fulfill their strategic digital initiatives. Check them out at this.co. One more time, that's THISDOT.co. All right. See you all next time.